interesting question. Please ban Rumble. That's my one thing. Just ban Rumble on red. Don't give them Rumble.
These two teams usually don't make big draft errors, so I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. I don't think Pyoshik is going to get to play Ivern for the rest of his season. Today, nor in playoffs. I just don't think that's going to be something that is allowed. I don't know if I'll say the same about Showmakers LeBlanc, but I do think it is a very strong ban here to drop on red side for KT Rolster. Aurora being globally banned means that it's a little bit more comfortable now on red side to ban things like the LeBlanc. So you can offer one extra ban towards that here if you're KT Rolster. Perfect Renekton now being taken away. Some very targeted bans by both of these teams.
Yeah. Renekton has been picked higher in the drafts recently, so if you're not going to pick it yourself, you don't just want to give it over to Perfect, who has been good on it, as you mentioned. There's that Kalista ban that Chronicler was talking about on the pre-show. You do want to take that away from Deft. You do want to take that away from Deft and Beryl. And it's going to be Aiming's Ezreal to be the final ban on red.
I think that's a very good trade of bans because Kalista is so strong into Ezreal anyways. You take that away, Ezreal then kind of has to be removed. Maokai is available, and it is Lucid's Maokai, which always makes some people raise their eyebrows, but I think he's a very good Maokai. And I think he gets a bad rap for some of his earlier games on the pick in the beginning of the year.
He's gotten much better.
Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't that strong of a jungler back then. I don't think it's specifically the Maokai champion personally that he was struggling on. As we will see the Sejuani Ashe to come through. When you have red side and they pick the Maokai, yeah, you lose Maokai, which is pretty strong, but then you're also going to gain the Sejuani Ashe ult combo, as taunting perhaps that this could be a bit of a Senna angle or some sort of Maokai flex, but I don't think so.
It definitely could. I mean, they don't have to, but there are a lot of picks that Lucid likes to play available. Like the Lee Sin, the Vi, maybe just some hovers, and MF is going to be the selection here very early on for Aiming.
He just has to keep the fans, he's being honest to the fans. He's looking like, I don't prefer to play this, I just know it's very strong.
Yeah.
And so I will lock it in.
Same with Showmaker, right? Gonna hover the Syndra.
Yes. And he's not doing it right now, but I think he's considering whether he's going to lock in a Leona to protect this Misfortune, or if he wants to get a strong mid pick here. Because Misfortune is still available, or sorry, the Leona is still available, strong into the Misfortune. You have the Ashe Arrow already, you have the Sejuani ult already. Misfortune relatively mobile in terms of her movement speed, but still can just be completely shut down as, oh, we're doing it again, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to go for Leona, this feels very good just to get a great matchup in mid once again, because you have to think that DK would know about this, they would ban it away from BDD, and not allow him to play it into Corki, but now you can't deny it, so...
And it's not just Leona that's problematic here for D plus Kia. Braum is also quite strong in this draft, so that's another consideration. That'll be banned away instantly. I think the Leona will follow, but as KT Rolster, you get the strong Smolder scaling aspect of this draft. It's been a good matchup into the Corki, and then you end up having two free bans kind of already locked in that D plus have to lock, so the rest of your draft feels a little bit more open. You also have counter pick for top. So this is looking very good for KT Rolster right now in terms of options. See, it's actually their Leona ban.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Makes you wonder what they do want to pick up here with the Ashe.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. I mean, there are a few unusual picks we've seen, like the Kalista that's been played with it. You know, we've seen Varus, we've seen Caitlyn, some crazy stuff, but I don't think that's necessarily what they've got in mind. Cassante will be banned now, so they don't want to allow for just a strong frontline for this Smolder composition. We've seen stuff like Bard here, but it looks like they just want to have more follow-up engage. Beryl will lock the Rel, then they'll keep counter pick here because Kennan's still up, Nar's still up here, so I think having your pick of the litter is going to feel pretty nice for Perfect here when you do see that King and lock-in.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got a Smolder and an Ashe, it feels like if you just draft more and more frontline, it's always going to feel good, even if you do go 3 tanks. So I kind of do like that Cassante ban, actually, on the side of DK. I think that's a great read after seeing what it looks like KT want to go for, as Alistair was left available into the Rel that will be selected here by Mohamed.
Looking like a GP potentially here for Kingen. mixed reviews on his GP game against Bro.
This blind.
Yeah, blind as well. Not a pick that's often very punishable in this meta, but we could see something like a Camille come out. Remember, there's a Sejuani in this draft here, so any sort of permafrost synergy topside makes this GP pick much more punishable, even though he does have the oranges. So we'll see if they want to opt into that here or just look for more frontline for this draft. I don't think it's going to be Akshan.
This ain't it.
Doran's not on this roster anymore. This could be Smolder top, by the way.
Yeah, that was the one thing. I mean, it's probably pretty good. I mean, you just have a farm lane in top. But again, as I said before, just getting more frontline probably also going to feel good.
Rise here would be quite interesting. I'm not as big fan of the, not as big of a fan of the Udyr pick here, just simply because I feel like it falls off in a big way later on. Do have follow-up for the Ash Stun, the Sejuani Glacial Prison coming through as well. And you have such big damage with this Smolder when you get to the late game that any single target that gets locked down multiple times will just burn to a crisp. But the Rise would have been also relatively risky here, not very tanky. You already scale so incredibly well. Don't want to have another fragile piece to this draft. The wave clear of the Udyr is going to feel pretty nice. You can kind of just sit up there, can weak side a little bit. You don't need jungle attention to be fine into the GP. Doesn't mean you're going to shut the GP down very hard either, but it is a pick that Perfect is very comfortable with. So I would have liked to see something a little bit more meta here, but I don't want to harp on it too much. We'll see how it pans out.
Yeah.
That's a big boon in terms of scaling that goes over to Kingen as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you're mentioning, either more meta or maybe it's just something more punishing, because it just feels like Kingen's going to sit in top and he's going to scale out of control. And if he does that on GP, he can absolutely match the Smolder, especially if DK get ahead in this game. You've got Corki from ahead, Barrels from ahead, even Poke from aiming, and the Saplings. Like, it can be very annoying for the Smolder to play this game out.
Yeah, a little bit concerning, too, that KT were also hovering the Smolder swap top. You probably want to keep that a secret if you're planning to use that going into the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. As here we go, we're going to hop into the Rift for game number 1.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
We are on the KT side of LOL Park today, and they are very loud. We got a packed audience here for this matchup. Saturday Showdown, you know, it's an off day. Everybody wants to come down and watch not just this game, but also the game later. T1 versus BNK FearX. As you mentioned before, not too many stakes. There's like one stake off in a parallel universe somewhere. We're not sure if it exists in this universe just yet.
We'll find out after game 1.
Yes.
And
well, not 100%. I mean, if KT wins game 1, it's not 100%.
Well, at least then you're like, oh, okay, game 2 could be, it could lock in the the stakes for the second match. But yeah, the second matchup, we're not sure if it matters or not at all. But again, that's how the end of regular season often goes. This week looked like it could have been, cram-packed with some really high-stakes matches, but it did end up kind of falling out with the wayside with the upset win for DRX yesterday. As had they not lost, then BNK's match against T1 would be a playoff determinant. As Perfect and Kingen will have a small interaction with each other. Barrels already starting to light him up.
Yeah, so we have Barrels from the GP. We also have Beryl in this game, and he's also playing Rel, so he's Beryl. So just stay with us, guys. It might get a little bit confusing in this game, but we'll try our best.
Yeah. Down here, this level 1, pretty tough to play out for Moham into the Ashe, but he's done a pretty good job. Lucid's 5-0 on this pick. Just putting it out there.
Yoshik has played 13 games of Sejuani.
I mean, can you blame him? They keep banning all his stuff every time.
All of his stuff, Ivern.
Yeah, they took the Maokai away from him a lot too.
True.
First picked in this game, by D+, so he couldn't play that either.
I mean, Sejuani, still strong. It's often used to match it in the Maokai as the tank jungler matchup. But it has cleansable CC, and it's a little bit less reliable than the Maokai, who can just press his ult and cover the entire screen and offer you a lot of zone control. I think there's more than the Sejuani.
Yeah, there's definitely some arguments to be made that Sejuani's ultimate can be more impactful too, though, because it comes out so fast. It's difficult to react to. If you don't have cleanse available, you get caught by it. There's not a lot of outplay, whereas Maokai, if you see him coming, you can sometimes just simply walk away or, you know, see the angle and avoid that. It's an ult you can play around a lot of the time.
Also cleansable.
Also cleansable, as you say. So, I mean, they certainly do different things. I think it's Sejuani's passive that, you know, we've often had our eyes on in the permafrost, but most teams really just don't utilize it all too much. They just simply use her as a frontline with the tank items that you can build very cheaply over the course of this year, as well as just her ultimate being a setup for CC. It's very easy to set her ultimate up with Defts and vice versa. That's why Ash Sejuani has been so popular. It was mentioned in the pre-show that Defts Ash, outside of, you know, setting up picks in team fights, has looked a little bit suspect, and I believe it was 1-4 on the pick this season, so not his greatest stats, but I do think this draft is set up for success with it.
You got this matchup. The stun comes in, and you can't block the crash down. Boham's got to flash away already, as Beryl does have to utilize his Ignite to get on in there, but Moham also trading his Ignite. Here comes Lucid up to the top lane, as Kingen has set this up. A bit of damage into Perfect. Can be hard to lock down the Udyr, who does go for the Ghost. As there's the twisted advance. Do they have the damage is really the question, as here comes Pillshake. They just give up on it, and now Lucid's in a rough spot. He's trying to run away from this one, and he will have to flash away. That flash afterwards from Pillshake, not great, but he gets in range, and now the Maokai in a lot of trouble. Does go in a Perfect, though, and they trade the kill back. Kingen gonna get a kill for himself.
Yeah, Kingen gets a kill for himself, and we'll have to back here, so it's not going to be like he's getting some extra XP or anything like that. Perfect will instantly teleport back to the lane, but a really good read from Pioshik. Comes up just a little bit too late to make that a good secure. The flash is a bit of a whiff, but the permafrost was so close there with Perfect starting to hit those autos and turn that fight around that we did see the flash come out super early as well from Lucid. Ends up being a trade of kills here. First blood, though, going to the Udyr, who actually has a pretty good control over this lane right now. Obviously, a lot of these minions crashing through will give Kingen the opportunity to catch up on farm. But a good start here for KT Rolster. On the other hand, could have been a lot worse for D+. Good that they get the kill back, and it goes to the GP. Going to be scaling a little bit faster in this one.
Yeah, I mean, if we take a look at all the lanes, the GP's behind. Actually, Showmaker had to TP pretty early. He's not that far behind, but also bot lane going pretty heavily in favor of Deft and Beryl right now.
So Perfect gets knocked back here by the smash, but that means Lucid really doesn't have any other tools here. He gets stunned by the bear. It's that bear slap coming through, and then Pioshik shows up. He flashes, doesn't want to get stunned there. Permafrost is still going to come through, of course, and then Perfect sets up the big damage here circle. There's a trade back, though, for Kingen, who does escape. So really on a knife's edge there. If they kill Perfect even slightly faster or catch him a little bit earlier, then he doesn't actually get to turn that one around. If Kingen gets a little bit more damage onto him, then maybe he dies there and doesn't get to turn that one around. So, well played on both sides. If Pioshik doesn't have the read on that, it is a huge win for Lucid and Kingen.
Yeah, absolutely. As we check in on Lucid himself, he is going to be farming the Krugs, spotted out by Deft. This first Dragon could be a look for Pioshik and KT, especially with the way the bot lane is going. It's not a gigantic lead, but it definitely feels like they have the pressure. As the Cannon Barrage is going to be coming in, and BDD is ganking on Smolder, and it might just be enough damage. So it's going to force Kingen away. Here comes Mom, do a little bit extra and get the slowdown, and now Kingen doesn't have anywhere to go. Eats the oranges, isn't enough. One more kill would do it, and he gets the kill. BDD kills him under the turret.
And Showmaker was not even able to follow the rotation, wasn't there at all. It's just a free roam for BDD. And I feel like Zeri, you know, we're starting to figure out, like, remember when Zeri released, everyone's like, oh, she's got a weak early game, but, you know, she gets strong later. Smolder actually winning lane a lot of the time in these very meta matchups. Also has his ultimate, which is a big spike on those first few skirmishes, and he just gets the roam up to the top lane, and gets his way up there very fast, and that just helps take Kingen out. So big win here for BDD. Will allow Showmaker to get a plate in return here, but BDD is really going to catch this wave. They're also going to get the Dragon you mentioned. It's in trade for the Grubs, but bottom side is completely under their control.
Getting engaged on here, gonna knock Beryl in, but he doesn't care. Only level 5 is Moham, and level 6 is the Ash. Moham getting super low, and he will be taken down. Beryl, unfortunately, gonna secure that kill, but it's still a kill for KT's bottom lane.
Yeah, they're getting a kill while also getting the Dragon at the same time. Lucid's cross map is gonna be to steal this red buff away, so a small victory for him. But KT in just such good control right now. The fact that BDD has that kill on top of everything else just feels really rough. And yes, Barrel did get the kill bottom side, which feels frustrating, but they knew Boam didn't have flash. We're going to go back to this play earlier. Cannon Barrage comes down super early as BDD is not affected by it here. Kingen flashes the Achu. Look at this Mom coming through, gets the slow. Perfect's on top of this GP. Kingen very, very low here. BDD just has the cooldown back up in time to secure that kill. Would have been a win either way, but securing that kill means he doesn't lose that plate for nothing. Obviously, that was the ideal goal. Got the flash as well. Arrow coming in here for depth. Remember, Mom doesn't have flash from the previous exchange, and that's going to be a kill. Goes over to Barrel, but still a big win. A plate is down bottom side. They're up 13 CS on the Ashe, and we're still topside.
And he stays to hit the barrel. Isn't enough damage, though. The CP very squishy at this point in time. It's just another kill to KT, and now Lucid gets baited into the fight. And these two tanks nearly able to dive the turret, but they force the flash of Lucid. And here comes BDD.
Got his ultimate. He might be able to snipe him here. He's going for it.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Oh!
Lucid is not looking. He's just going to be taken down.
No way, BDD. Oh man, Valdez, this is a disaster for D+. And you know what? You and I both said it. We were like, I don't know if this Udyr is really going to punish the GP all too much. I don't know if they're going to play through that. They're playing through it. BDD is self-sufficient in mid. He's making roams. Bottom side, you obviously win against the Alistair early with the Ashe, but they've continued to put the pressure on in that lane. And Maz, 5 kills to 1 here, 2,500 gold lead. Every lane is winning.
Yeah. And I don't care who ends up winning this game, but Smolder is getting banned in game 2 by D+ Kia. That's just incredible what he's able to do with that ult in the range. I mean, this guy's just everywhere as well, and it starts off with Perfect and Pyoshik.
Yeah, I mean, the permafrost synergy with this top jungle is very good, and Lucid doesn't ult to try to save the play here. A little bit surprising. Could have maybe tried to stem the bleeding there, help Kingen get out. Just didn't expect that. They were going to commit this heavily and then just get sniped here by BDD. Pretty unlucky. Wow! Yeah, that was my reaction as well. Oh, man. Yeah, he's shouting BDD out for that one as BDD has 2 kills. He is stacking well. And he has a similar, right now in this meta, 2-item spike to the Corki, but that's not really going to be, you don't really hit that till you get your stacks later, but he's just kind of on track, Valdez. He's ahead of the curve, I should say.
Yeah, it descends up. The Corki can't punish the Smolder enough, so BDD just gets to do whatever he wants. And not every Smolder has looked like this in the mid lane. I think BDD has really been the best, as that was a Valkyrie of all time. Totally fine. BDD sitting here with double buff and landing a choose onto Showmaker, just stacking his hearts to his heart's content. And Boam, who picked the Alistair for the Rel, still not handling this lane very well himself.
And I know, we love to just expect what the spacers are going to say here on the cast, but I feel like Chronicler might be raising his eyebrows at Leandri's purchase here for Lucid. No, he's not a big fan of the AP Maokai variants, would prefer a tank. But I'm going to have to side with that sentiment right now because this composition doesn't really have that much of a strong front line. It has an Alistair, of course, but it can just be chain CC'd if it is going to be your main front line. Maokai is going to often be far away from those fights, but is going to also blow up around objective fights later on without any tanky stats. We'll see what he ends up building next, but I feel like this Leandri is going to be low value in this early game. Grubs do go over, D+ trading those. So it's going to be 3-3 as they got the first ones. Second Dragon's up in 45 here. Smolder has his Triforce.
Yeah, I mean, he is already just, he's just free farming mid, and even though Showmaker isn't really under too much pressure, it's just a lot of stacking that goes over for free to the Smolder, and nobody's really able to threaten it because the jungle matchup is heavily favored towards Pyoshik, so Lucid can't go over there. The bot lane's under pressure, so it's not like Moham can roam. And Kingen, I feel like, this lane could have looked different. I think early on, he was doing okay, but he had a lot of very aggressive lane states and did not respect Pyoshik, who has made his 13 games of Sejuani look like great practice so far for this match.
Yeah, certainly. The Udyr's, his autos come in so quickly. It's very nice for Sejuani, but it's also nice for clearing wards. We've kind of talked about this a lot when old Udyr was jungle meta, or like, well, you can rip through those wards real fast, press Q. It's pretty good at the barrels as well. You know, he's challenging the barrel placement there for Kingen, making him struggle to get setups to set up chains. So the pick actually really working out here for Perfect. We were big doubters, and we often are when Perfect locks in the Udyr. It's kind of a Perfect special right now here in the LCK, but it's making it work again.
Yeah. Generally, I was going to be okay if it was just going to sit in the front line and be a sponge for the Smolder, but he has done so much more than that. As now they engage on a Pyosik. This is a very tanky Sejuani. Can they get through him? The answer is no, as aiming totally whips the ult, hits nothing. And now Beryl and the rest of the team is following up here as Lucid has to flash away. So low are the health bars. As Deft actually getting a little bit too far ahead of his team, and now Pyosik not able to follow up, aiming able to punish him. And here comes D plus Kia, a couple of kills going their way as BDD, very, very strong though, gonna get slowed up here. And now BDD is looking to challenge the two of them. Going on in, taking a bunch of damage. He's got aiming behind him as well. It's BDD versus the world.
He's definitely dead here, aiming around the corner. You have to think.
Oh, he's still fighting this one out. He doesn't have his flap, and he will be taken down as the TP goes into the top lane and just running away from the barrels. Another thing that Udyr can do well.
Sounds like some of the fans on our side of the arena got a little bit too enthusiastic about how the early game went. The fight and the turn looked so good. Like, Barrel's there for the ultimate, right? And when you see this, everything goes into a Sejuani. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, that's how you lose a fight. But they still had positional advantage. BDD drops his ultimate down here. The bullet time doesn't really do anything. And you're like, okay, this should be good. If they just slow played this a little bit better, like, there's clearly a split call here. The ultimate only catches Barrel. Like, BDD's walking away. They're like, oh, yeah, we won this fight, I guess. But you didn't win it yet, actually. So they weren't fully grouped. If BDD is there, he stacks a few Qs in this fight, then you're going to feel a lot better about how this one goes, because his ultimate essentially helped them win it. And that's the big power point for this Smolder. But now, these low health bars, 1v3, 1v4, as aiming comes around the corner. Down he goes. So a huge swing of gold over to D+. A shutdown to aiming from the Smolder as well. 3 kills on the Misfortune. And forget how the laning phase was going. Yep. He's ahead now.
It's the Gold King. He's back. He's probably got the most gold on his team after all of that. And yeah, I mean, KT is still ahead on gold by 1,000, and it's Infernal Soul in this one. As KT do look to take down the Rift Heralds. They have all 5 members over here. Meanwhile, King just free farming. They're going to look for Lucid, who doesn't have sums at this point in time. He's just going to be food, not able to take out Beryl. And down will go Lucid.
Yeah, that Leandri's not really going to help him in this situation, but, you know, I don't know if he had any other tank item first, if he would have lived either with all that CC. Super frustrating, though, when you've got to be the guy up in the front line. You've got to be getting that information, that intel. He just ends up getting left out to dry, unfortunately, and Perfect's going to come over here, challenge Kingen.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really long lane. Perfect, a little bit unsure about himself, doesn't want to be next to the barrel, but he's got Ghost up, so he's still going to continue chasing. Turtle to absorb some of that damage, lands the stun. Kingen in a bit of a rough spot. He's also got Pyosik coming over. Kingen desperate to take down Perfect, but he can't quite do it, as now it's a 3-on-1, and Perfect will net himself a 3rd kill.
Yeah, I mean, meanwhile, on the other side of the map, you know, there's a turret up there, and it's not going to be Showmaker putting any pressure onto that one. A lot of, you know, resources had to be used to bail Perfect out there of that exchange guarantee he gets the kill. But he's able to shut down the push onto the inner. They pick up a kill themselves. Showmaker doesn't get anything cross-map just yet, as BD's just going to be sitting up there stacking. Deft moved into the mid lane. So pretty big win here for KT. They still have a gold lead. And if the Misfortune setup isn't there, will necessarily be all too useful to aiming. Has all that money, as Lucid's just up here trying to control Banana Brush, try to set up for an ultimate here to contest this Rift Herald. They know the Smolder isn't that strong just yet, so perhaps they're thinking, okay, we can win this fight, but just so much CC. KT's draft, you know, the one hole in it was this part, right? But Perfect's so ahead, he can actually tango with this GP. Long term, those barrels really start to stack up, but Perfect is not alone. Barrel also comes over, and that is the cleanup. So even with 3 bottom, though, they're not able to get any cross. Perfect shutting down this GP. Still was able to farm quite a bit alone there. But I mean, look at his items. He's got a Sunfire online. He is very tanky, very difficult to deal with. And it's just one more CC button of these 4 that they have to lock somebody down and kill them before an objective fight.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, King is definitely struggling. I still do think that the GP will serve a function, but he's been very far behind. We saw King actually, I think it was against Bro, he got far behind, he even flashed into a Lilia bowling ball, and it was really rough. And then he eventually carried the late game anyway. So, a massive engage under the turret as Barrel, no chill at all, just going in. And the follow-up is not quite there. And now the rest of the team is getting baited in as well. Perfect. And the Smolder BDD able to get a couple of kills. Perfect is so deep in that one that BDD can't quite follow up. Maybe a bit over-aggressive with Barrel.
That was definitely a little bit over-aggressive, I think, from almost everybody there on the side of KT. You've got this combo with the Rel ultimate going through as well as the Smolder ultimate, but it's not quite a bullet time, you know? It's pretty good. It's not quite a bullet time. That is one thing that I did want to mention about the draft that I kind of forgot until just now, is the pick of the Rel there after the MF came was a nice denial pick as well, giving counter pick to Perfect, but also denying that for bullet time. You can see Ashe does a little bit of single target damage here, but Moham doing so much work preventing Def from actually laying that damage through. Mom comes through, but BDD is not fully stacked just yet, so this fight could have been a lot better if it happened 4 minutes later, perhaps, into this game. Or, if, I don't know what his stacks are at, maybe not quite that long, maybe 2 minutes later. Either way, big overextension, a lot of extra gold going over now to this Corki. You mentioned Kingen in that Bro game. I believe it was like 1-3 or 0-3 in that game as well. Almost the same situation. Yeah. He's getting closer to being relevant. Doesn't have too much just yet. Just an Executioner's Calling is his second item.
Total gold is perfect on top. He's farming very well. It's kind of funny that he's ahead of, you know, guys in the mid lane like Showmaker who have 223 CS, and also 203 is Showmaker, but just a lot of extra gold going over to Perfect elsewhere. Even the plates in the top lane as KT trying to control the mid lane now and go for this streak. It's looking pretty free at this moment. Kingen does have TP if they want to go for a fight.
It's crazy that it's Infernal Soul. Each individual dragon will actually mean so much in this composition as well. For both teams, but for KT's Smolder, feels pretty insane. Kingen does have Demolish, and is going to try to take this turret out completely uncontested right now. Has the barrage. That shouldn't have happened.
Why did they just... Okay, well, they're maybe going to be able to punish him after the fact, as here comes the bomb from the sky once again, but BDD is not able to follow up, and they just get away with the free Drake, and Kingen's farming the side lane.
Yeah, free Drake, free turret. And BDD just hit 228, as what we saw when he was clicked on there, so he's got his stacks, but unfortunately not able to really utilize them to win a team fight, as Lucid just walks up and steals it. Like, not even a attempt to stop him did happen there, despite all the CC they have. And that's just going to be Infernal Dragon going over to D+ here. And the lead that KT had is, it's kind of washed away. The Smolder does have 4 kills in this game. It's the Udyr that otherwise has the big money. As you can see the stacks I mentioned. Smolder doesn't use gold incredibly well. It's decent for him to have it, obviously, but it's really the stacks that are going to make him more relevant later on. The Udyr going to use gold in the early game very well, but otherwise isn't going to really feel as good as maybe an MF and a Corki is. Here comes Moham.
Oh boy, they're just trying to face check into the river, and this time Pyosik is just going to be punished, and that one felt like it was free as well. I mean, he just kind of sticks his nose in there. He's like, hey, what's going on, guys? DK, take him down. That's the jungler of KT gone, and it might just be an early Baron for DK.
Yeah, let's see if they can stop the Smolder from really burning them down. I mean, there's a very late rotation over from KT.
They're just not really in position to challenge this either. I mean, BDD's doing damage to an Alistar. Moham doesn't care. And now you've got the combo, the turn coming in. They already took the Baron, and BDD can't do anything. Deft and BDD just running away from this one. DK, they get so much value out of this. They're just wondering if they want more.
Deft's gonna have to flash.
And, well, I guess they wanted more. It's not looking good, though. They need to flash away. BDD nearly dies. And now might just be flashed on here. The cannon barrage gets him, and a big one to the face of Deft. And finally, DK find that little bit of extra value. The disengage cone will get Perfect out, but DK, they surge into the lead.
Yeah, and that's a huge pick onto Pyosik there. Just no control over that part of the map, and he just sticks his nose where it doesn't belong, to kind of continue with your analogy. And D+ winning some big fights here, kind of for free. I mean, stealing the dragon to start, And then here, like, KT are just in no position. The rotation over is so late, so slow. Even with a lackluster ultimate coming through from Lucid, they just end up having way too much here for KT to handle. Deft also kind of ends up getting in a really rough spot here. Has to flash, doesn't want to cleanse that. Not going to really be too useful. And then, yeah, BDD gets a kill back. Well, this is a disaster. And they were able to take off one of the Barons. But this just wasn't worth it for KT, and it all starts off with that pick onto Pyosik. I mean, this is just self-explanatory. Perfect gets away, luckily for him, but it feels like a consolation prize as the Corki is very big now. He was very muted for most of the early game. D+ had a lead. Now it's a significant lead, a nearly 4,000 gold lead, 3,200 of which off of this Baron power play. And yeah, you've got a scaling Smolder, but you don't have any map control, and I don't know if you're going to get it back anytime soon. KT Rolster hanging by a thread now after having this game completely in their grasp.
Absolutely, and I mean, they haven't even really showcased a clean 5v5 team fight either. Like, they got their Smolder online. Even Deft, you know, farmed up pretty well. He's not in a good spot, obviously, in terms of his comparison to aiming at this point in time, but like, he was in a good spot, BDD was in a good spot, but we just never saw a clean 5v5, and DK just got all of the mid-game picks, and now, I mean, it doesn't really feel like KT have a good way to stop them. I talked about this in draft, like, yes, you've got the Smolder, you've got great scaling, but DK from ahead, you've got Corki GP and MF, who's just farmed out of her mind. What are they going to do against this?
Yeah, and without map control, it's hard for Beryl to set up engages. So, you know, maybe if D+ overextend or go in, but their comp doesn't really go in. You know, it just kind of sits back and sets up combos with the Maokai ultimate. You know, with Showmaker's poke, he cleans up if somebody tries to engage. He does so much damage. He has his RFC now.
They can, you know, they have lockdown, but also they, you know, they have a ton of zone control. Yeah.
So, you know, as Beryl, your agency now is super low in this game, and the Udyr is more ahead than we thought that he was going to be in terms of gold, but how well is that going to translate into this late game now as a Spirit Visage?
Yeah.
It's like, cool spike, bro.
Doesn't compare at all to the GP, and we talked about this not 5 minutes ago. Like, Kingen, yeah, he got put down very hard in the early and mid game, but it just doesn't matter because now he's GP in the late game. You know, he's not farmed out of his mind, but it just doesn't matter.
BDD is going to get stronger, but it's just, you need time in a team fight with Smolder to actually win it. And if he gets hit by a barrel chain, that's the end of the fight. If he gets hit by the edge of an MF ult or caught by the Maokai, then that's the end of the fight. If he doesn't get caught by the Maokai ult that's well placed, it's because he's too far away from the fight, which means the fight is lost. You know, it just feels like when you look at what D+ have, now that they're in control and the GP is online. I mean, it's not even fully online, by the way, but he's online enough to actually really chip away at these members of KT. It's really rough, and they gave up the first of the Infernal Dragons. They gave up the second one here because there was no way for them to contest during Baron, and now they have to fight this next one, and if they lose it, that's likely the game. Not to mention the Baron that's coming up here that they don't have a ton of control over. They have some vision around it now, but it's not spawned yet. Kingen just farming up a Storm, level 16.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, I mean, it went so well for Perfect and Pyosik early on to shut down Kingen. Is there anything else they could have picked that really just shuts it down harder and scales a bit better to maybe, you know, utilize their lead a bit more outside of just relying only on the Smolder and the Ashe?
I think that, to me,
maybe a chase? Or
the big factors here were the overcommitment in the bottom fight over Dragon, where they just kind of completely overextended, and BDD's like, I can kill 4 people, and then he was also already walking back up to mid. That was a disaster. There was the pick on the Pyosik, that was huge, but before that, there was also the unnecessary dive onto the mid turret. I feel like they tossed their lead away multiple times in this game. They had enough of an advantage to where they could have just played slow and sat back and said, yeah, well, GP's scaling, but we're going to get all of the Dragons. If they're sitting on Soul Point right now and GP's scaled up, but they still maintain that lead, they still maintain map control, though Baron went over, I feel like this game is still playable, but they just gave too many small wins to D+. You add them all together.
Yeah, and then some big wins as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the pick on a Pyosik and a Baron was pretty huge. not to mention the team fight after. So DK, they maintain a lead of about 4,500, but they didn't really, they got the one inner and bot, and that's about it. So the game isn't over by any means. I mean, BDD is still kind of fed out of his mind. So we'll see. I mean, it's really going to be up to him to try to carry team fights and get some good engages from your front line and allow him to do damage. Otherwise, it might just be DK running away with this game. So we'll see if KT can make something out of their new situation in this game.
Yeah. When BDD gets Leandries, that ends up being a really nice late game spike because it means that he can do damage pretty consistently with all of his abilities, including his Q, of course, but we burning health bars down. Something like he just did there with the Achu would be much more valuable if he had that.
That is an Alistair. They're just going to counter-engage onto Perfect, who is getting pretty low. He is Udyr trying to run away, but now the engage follow-up onto everybody. Mob comes down, and everything is burning as Solo are the health bars, aiming not able to do much, throws an ult into depth. And now Moham trying to just get a little bit out of this one, but just has to get away from Perfect. And now aiming in a really rough spot himself, trying to take down Pyosik. Showmaker gets one, but it's KT who win the fight in a big way, 3-1.
Right before Baron, Pyosik still alive here, has his smite. Showmaker sitting at, just under half health. There's nothing he can do here to stop this one, so great re-engage from Barrel. I feel like without some of Barrel's Magnet Storms, this game could have looked even rougher for KT, but he saves this one as the Mom comes through from BDD. So Moham, not the greatest target to engage on, but this kind of baits D+ and it feeling like they can actually turn this fight. Lucid drops his ultimate early, and then there's no follow-up as Perfect tanks everything, and the Barrel goes in for the 3-man Magnet Storm into Crashdown. Look at this Mom damage, plus the burning from his Qs. And Showmaker is able to trade back onto depth here as aiming puts a little bit more damage down onto that Ashe. That is really all they are going to get out of this one. Showmaker has to just kind of walk home in sadness after he kills Deft, as the Baron will go to the way of KT Rolster. And we're tossing it back, Valdez. We are tossing it back. D+ still with the gold lead, but let's see if that lasts here. Baron should lead into KT Rolster's first Infernal Dragon of the game.
It should. I'm glad that you say it that way because this is, you wonder why the series are always so close between DK and KT. Well, this is why. A lot of the games look like this. One team's in the lead, they throw it over, they say, no, you can have it. The other team's like, nah, I think you should have it. And obviously, the teams are making great plays themselves. Like, really big credit to Beryl in that last one. Without him, as you mentioned, I mean, DK probably win the fight if they don't have that Rel engage. So now, gonna try to posture over this Dragon. DK not gonna back off of this one just yet.
BD is nearing 400 stacks. He is very strong at this moment in time. Still has the Baron buff as well. For some additional combat prowess. See if Rel can find that engage barrel on the flank.
Yeah, you see Showmaker trying to tip away. KT not really pushing Lucid out of this one, though, so he is in, and it goes to flip, and it's Infernal Soul to DK, as this fight as well is pretty close. Barrel gonna be taking out BDD, super low, he's being burned to a crisp by the Infernal Drake. And down he will go. Showmaker and aiming are solo themselves. They're going to back away. But DK, man, they get it tossed back to them, and they're able to catch it.
Yeah, King is trying to chase down Perfect and Pyosik here. He's got those Infernal stats.
Yeah, TP's going to come in here. I think they just need to use this timing to try to push a little bit more.
Yeah, they're going to try to turn this into an inhibitor. They have this huge wave here. Even though KT have Baron buff, those Baron minions aren't going to defend this inhib. And if anyone else dies, I mean, they might be able to actually get even more here. Everyone for D+ completely grouped. BDD's not up for 20 seconds.
All right, they're just doing a little bit of posturing outside of the turrets, but there's no wave here, as you mentioned, and they're going into Baron. So they take down the inhibitor, see what they can see. They're not going to overstay their welcome, but man, another big one to DK.
Yeah, if they had ended up getting a kill there, maybe they end up ending the game until BD comes back. I mean, there's not much that KT could do. Look at this bullet time, completely zoning Pyosik out. The BDD gets that initial pick here, but unfortunately, he's in a cannon barrage as Showmaker duels him. And he's not a damage threshold to actually kill Showmaker with his Q there. Leandries helps out, but Showmaker's just in a better spot because Corki has those rockets coming through. He's outranging the Smolder, and the Cannon Barrage kind of makes it so BDD has no win. Like, do I die to Cannon Barrage or do I die to Showmaker?
Yeah. The zone control from GP and Maokai is just ridiculous. Also the bullet time, as you mentioned. But the barrels that Kingdom was hitting in that fight is just, it's unbelievable what kind of damage he can do. Now that he has his IE, and he's looking at a 4th item soon, he's not up there in the damage charts, but the burst damage where they really need it is coming from him, just getting BDD low enough to take down. As BDD obviously on the Smolder is going to rule the damage charts himself, but again, he can't do it all by himself either. You know, he can burn them down, but eventually he gets taken out, and there's a lot of threats on the side of DK as well.
Yeah. This game is just going to come down to the Elder fight. I think with the inhibitor being the bot inhibitor, it's actually pretty nice for KT because they can just consistently clear that one and try to get Prio for the Elder. If it were top, it would cost them teleport control in order to try to clear that. You can see BD is really stacking quite well at this point in time at 423. So you can see the extra damage he has here from those stats. That 625 execute will be helped by the Leandri's burn as well. So I think that, you know, when you look at how these fights have been won by KT, it's been barrel engaging, right? And if Lucid keep him at arm's length, then, you know, this composition doesn't necessarily end up winning out, because we talked about how there isn't a great front line for D+ necessarily. Like Warmogs is done for Lucid now. They have the Alistar with the ult, which again, sometimes you just get chain CC'd and killed. But I think the real front line is Bullet Time and Cannon Barrage, and the Maokai ultimate as well. So if KT get a Sejuani ult onto somebody, but then there's a Bullet Time on top of said target, they can't follow up on it. And that's kind of how these fights have looked. And if Barrel doesn't end up setting them up, BDD just needs so much time. And during that time, he has to deal with a Fed Misfortune as well as Cannon Barrage and Barrels.
And also, I mean, you're talking about like very, you know, 5v5 straight up fights. I feel like we've gotten one of those. Like the last fight we had was one of those, but outside of that, it's been a lot of just skirmishes and a lot of people getting picked off left and right, or crazy overextensions and, you know, face checks into lack of vision. So I feel like we need to get past that point first.
Yeah, that's a good point, because this game could just be decided by like Pioshik walking into a brush and dying, and then the Elder goes over and we're like, all right, cool, that was a fun 38-minute game.
That does happen.
That
sometimes.
happens, you know. It shouldn't happen, but it does happen. Stakes are not as high as they could be, right? But it's still a high-pressure game, and you want to prove that you're in good playoff form before we hit playoffs, as they're going to clear this wave in mid. The inhibitor's down for just another minute here, and like I said, it's the lane that's close to the Elder, so it's pretty easy for BDD to just chill down there, get stacks as much as he can, and just make sure that their Nexus is never under threat. The inhibitor will respawn before the Elder is ready. There's not going to be an issue of prio necessarily here. Baron is up earlier, so KT do have to kind of juggle between that and the Elder. The Elder is the real prize. If they could just keep D+ busy, deny them from taking this Baron very quickly, should be fine. BD gets GA as well right before this potential fight.
Yeah, the timing is pretty much impeccable on that item. Deft able to check at least with some hawk shots. Barrel in a little bit of trouble as he is having to crash down, and now he has to flash as well. Ton of damage done the other way though, aiming super low, in goes Perfect, and he's just gonna die! Tries to get the kill on a aiming, as it's just kind of a drive-by into death from Perfect, and now, he's dead.
I don't know if that's necessarily gonna be enough to get Baron though. BDD has TP, he's gonna back and come back over.
VT, I mean, he's just gonna heal up, and yeah, they're just not even gonna go for it. They have to deal with the bottom lane and the Elder tree.
No one was dealing with this, and that's the Baron pull that really does KT in here, because if BDD could come back to the fight with full health, maybe they could win it. As unfortunately for Perfect, he's very tanky and he has Jack shows, but you know, it takes a little bit of time to activate. Look at how quickly he dies when he goes in here. And aiming is super low, has to expend both summoners. If they kill him, that's so much Baron damage gone. Like, I don't hate the idea, but I think the judgment was a little bit off, as now they're just on Elder.
Look at this. Pioshik, he's trying to get in on the left side, but he cannot. Oh, he's trying to get in, and he does. He's going to smite it away. The Elder Drake goes to BDD, and now DK can't go anywhere near that guy, but they do take down a couple. And maybe they try to push off of this, but it's very dangerous into Smolder with Elder.
Finally, Pioshik's able to get one of those. Finally gets the smite, finally gets the secure. BDD's got basically double Elder here in this one. So, as you say, D+ cannot really play around him. They don't want to be anywhere near him. They do not want to interact with him at all. They have Baron buff.
Arrow. One arrow might be enough. Bomb is going to come down, and yeah, they're just abandoning Lucian. They're like, yeah, get out. We need to run away. And it's actually the sapling that slows up BDD and doesn't allow him to get in range.
Respawn's coming through here for KT. Pioshik's up in 10. Beryl just respawning now. There's no objective to take. They just need to group and try to get something done with this Elder buff. But obviously the defensive Baron minions are going to be a big problem. Now BDD was dealing with the wave, isn't here for this initial fight. Lucid ults and uses his Twisted Advance, and yet Pioshik still buffers the flash in here. And Lucid is out of the pit.
Yeah.
Because he tried to keep Pioshik out, he was actually also out, unable to get back in. And
it was actually, they turned on a barrel and they killed it. If they just hit the Drake,
yeah.
I think they just burn it and Pioshik doesn't get in the pit. But because they wasted a little bit of time to kill the Rel, it just ended up that he got in right on time.
Yeah. It was a really good attempt by Lucid, but the rest of the team was thinking elsewise, as Moham is taking a lot of damage very fast. And keep your eyes on those white lines on the health bars between the Elder and the Smolder that it just does so much tick damage. Does still have his GA available as well, so you really have to consider, okay.
They're just going to run into them. I mean, he's got Elder, but that will go deft as well. Jeez, the damage from the Infernal Soul is just ridiculous. And it's a trade of 80 carries, one of them which had Elder. I feel like DK will take that, but it's still KT in control of the mid lane for now. Yeah,
they need to get an inhibitor, though, I feel like, and there's only 20 seconds left on this Elder, so looks like D+ have really staved off the pressure. Yeah, they get this inner turret. The gold from that isn't that valuable. It will open up that inhibitor turret in the top lane a little bit here. It ends up being a pretty good trade, all things considered, for D+, like you say, because that's one of the Elders gone. For the last few seconds, you have to deal with it.
Look at how fast Def does.
Yeah, watch Def. Flashes, because he's like, ooh, that barrel. And then BDD's ult comes down here as well. Kingen will also have to flash, and they do end up getting this inner, but that's D+ saving the inhibitors. We reach 40 minutes, and we're doing the same song and dance. Elder and Baron will be up similarly timed to how they were last time. Obviously, a little bit closer this time, maybe about 40 seconds rather than like a minute 10, the difference. BD continues to stack here. It's getting stronger and stronger, but it is nearly a full build GP as well. So if he gets burst down, if you go into the GA is like a myth that like, oh, he'll revive and then he'll do things. If you go to the GA, that means your damage is gone during the animation of the GA, and you probably lose that fight.
Maybe one more Q after the fact. It really depends on the situation in the fight, right? Like how it's going, how many members are left, is he in danger, does he have allies to protect him as he's reviving?
Yeah, I mean, the GA stats are also incredibly valuable, so it's not like you shouldn't buy this item. But it can be somewhat of a double-edged sword in that, it's very expensive. It's your final item, final piece of this build you put together here that is going to keep you alive, hopefully. And yet, these fights are going to be so snowbally, very likely. Cosmic Drive also pretty nice pickup for him here. So a little bit more mobile in trade for the boots. Does feel wise to grab that one. So
yeah,
he is full build. He is a very glass cannon, but a very high damage cannon. It's really, this game is so much about what these next fights are going to look like. The Elder fight wasn't decisive enough. They end up getting the Elder, but they lose the fight. So the game continues. But this is what we said we were going to get going into this series. 40-minute games, 45-minute games. That's
just game
expected.
One.
Yeah.
This is just game one. Like, we might have 3 of these. That might just happen. And if KT win it, they still keep their chances of a tiebreaker alive as well. So you never know what's going to happen on today's match. And you see DK, they're playing very respectfully because they know, just one Q can mean the difference. If they engage, there's the ult. Moham has to get away from that one, trading it with the Ash Arrow. But the Ash Arrow has a lower cooldown, so KT kind of win in that trade.
Absolutely. Huge win for KT. And Moham is no longer really going to be a tank in this next fight. Baron, 40 seconds faster than this Elder, but KT's still surfing between the two. Neither team having any decisive vision on these objectives. KT having a little bit of the
A-Ram.
Yeah.
we're just sitting mid and
We're
just poking.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should just go the way of KT because they have the range on the poke.
They also have the smolder. That's a pretty good thing to have when you're poking. The MF not going to be as good.
Yeah, you see like some barrels thrown in, some missiles as well from Showmaker. And yes, that is going to do damage, but...
The zoning here is very strong, but BDD's positioning, his spacing so good.
A little bit of MF poke. Neither team is going to make their move as there is, and well, it's just, okay, Mohawk getting pretty low, he has to flash away. And that is a lot of engaged potential taken away from the side of DK.
And it's just what we said, the arrow trade is better. Now he doesn't have ult, he's arrowed again. And there's rushing towards the Elder here, but KT have the damage. Moam is on the wrong side of this fight.
Moam has his ult back, so at least he's got that. Ward comes down, and, well, the wave is pushing bot as well, so DK really trying to utilize that at this point.
Look, Barrel's engage is what everyone's got their eyes on right now. He has flash ult, and D+ need to respect it.
Oh, they're TPing bot. They want to end the game. They don't care about the Elder Drake. They want to take the game. Here comes the barrel engage. That is a massive bullet time, but the stun comes in onto aiming, and it's a flip for the Elder. It goes the way of DK, and down will go barrel. Lucian will also bite the dust, but the Elder Drake is enough. The TP is coming in, but it's too late. Oh, he does get in, but Showmaker just has enough damage to push him away. And BDD all alone, the sad little baby dragon, will not win the game for the team. D+ Kia take game one.
It was not clean on either side at any way, at any moment. But at the end of the day, it's Lucid who gets a smite steal, and it's also, or the secure, I should say, as well as Showmaker pulling this team back. And I feel like KT Rolster just weren't aware of the possibility. They knew that the base was open, but I don't think they expected that to be so decisive there from Showmaker, as they did have BDD's teleport, but he was in the fight. He was focusing on trying to secure the Elder, trying to win the team fight. And if he goes back, he might just end up dying instantly as well there. Once the Elder goes over, he certainly would, because the Elder buff is against him. And a very back and forth game. It felt like a game of tossing it back and forth at a lot of these junctures. BDD showcasing the Smolder again as a very strong pick, using it extremely well in the early game with that Udyr top. I think that was the most impressive part of this game for KT. Outside of that, though, sure, he does a big damage numbers, but when it came to objective control, setup, being decisive around fights, it was especially Lucid who had the much better exchange. Sure, he did end up losing the first Elder, zones himself out there, the rest of the team doesn't burn it down, but otherwise just had Pioshik's number on the smite key. I don't know what to say about this one. It was wild.
It was a wild and wacky one. I can only hope we get two more. By the way, this means no tiebreakers are going to happen here for this season. Hirai is furious. As we are done here for game one, we'll be back for game two.
아, 코르키야, 나와봐.
오케이 볼게.
내가 싸워봤다 이거 일단.
야 이거
홀더, 홀더.
야, 나 LC 나 이거
앞라인 보자.
7천에 궁 쓸게 7천에.
어? 1천 너무 많은데.
나 간다. 7천에 쓸게. 나 바텀 간다.
가야겠다.
바텀 가.
바텀
야,
가.
바텀 생각할게. 바텀 가. 우리가 이거 치어서 압박 주자 형.
야, 싸우자.
아 얘네가 봐 얘네가 봐.
끊어야 돼.
아니야
오케이.
끊어야 돼. 끊어야 돼.
야, 렐렐렐렐렐.
나 그냥 뺏고 올게.
야, 진명 끊어. 진명 끊어. 집 끊어봐요. 잠깐만. 끊어.
형 그냥 끝내줘.
야, 끝내라. 끝내.
끝내 끝났다.
나이스. 아, 왜 잡으면 안 돼?
끝났어.
So that is all locked up. We know where the playoff standings are from 1 to 6. But now, an already very fun series could get more fun, Valdez. We'll see the LeBlanc ban again, even easier to do on blue side. I don't know if Smolder is really bannable here for D+ on red. And I don't know if that's going to actually be valuable because what you'll give up is actually quite high. We could see Pioshik pick up the Maokai first pick. You know, the Death was pretty critical of picking the Sejuani into it. They did have the Ashes. Bubbling will quickly pick up the Notepad.
He's just so bubbly, you know? It's everything's bubbling around and can't quite hold on.
It's okay. He's still got a few seconds left before
Bubbly
they lock the
notebook.
second ban. He's like, second ban is, let me check my notes right here. It says, yeah, Rumble. Yeah, got it. Writes it in. I do like the Vi ban, the Ezreal ban, of course, pretty strong here. Aiming has been one of our best Ezreals. Final ban gets interesting here, though, for D+, and I think it should be Maokai. I don't think the Ashe performance warrants a ban on red side ban Ashe here.
Yeah, I do agree. I think in this meta, the tier list is the Maokai ban here. The question is, do they value a pocket pick or something else over it, as Renekton is going to be banned?
That's really interesting when you consider Kingan's current form as well, and the fact that he was able to come back and do so much despite having a rough laning phase, which wasn't his fault. He just got ganked a lot. So I do find that a little bit peculiar, but either way, we are going to see maybe a Lucin coming through. No. Just going to be the Lilia, which is really rising up in popularity right now here in the LCK. I feel like the win rate doesn't, it's at 40% right now, but doesn't really show the impact it's had, even in a lot of losses. Owner's iconic game, of course, against Gen.G, one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, or even Sponge recently, just yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
Against Quantum Freaks. Big game from his Lilia. A lot of smiles here on the side of DK, but it's just blind MF.
I wonder if they'll just get the Leona that they banned instead of playing last game. This would be a really interesting choice, just to lock the Cassante down early for perfect. Gnar still available. Cannon still available. Is really keeping this draft very open-ended if they do this. What comes with this? Is it just going to be BDD grabbing Corki? Looks like that's the yes that I was expecting to see. Is just, okay, stock standard. And we'll keep the bottom lane for the second phase. And they could protect this Corki pick. Unless Showmaker locks something in right now, which... I mean, he's not known to play Lucian into the Corki, even though he's been one of our best Lucian mids. I always mention that because 2021 was like the year of Showmaker Lucian. But just going to be the Rel combo here for the MF. I'll ban the Leona away. You have to imagine the Ashe is still available, so might be kind of running that back. Kalista also not banned this time around.
Yeah. You could see Kalista, you could see Leona in this spot. A lot of target and thinking about exactly what Deft and Beryl generally play. You already have your whole bottom lane locked in, so it's not like you can even save R5 counter pick for support role. You already see the top laner on the side of KT, so you will have counter pick anyway. So it will be interesting as Gnar going to be taken away. They will target the top lane here, will KT.
Gnar, one of the strongest picks into Cassante. If not the strongest right now in this meta, so it does feel wise. I don't think Kingan's going to be playing any TF or Vayne. We'll leave those for Zeus maybe when we see that telecom war in the playoffs. Final ban here. Feels like Leona is just too obvious. They'll ban the Senna instead. As it gets a little bit trickier here, you could just ban Cannon. I'm trying to think of what other picks you might expect Showmaker to play. Okay, well, there's the Trindamere, which we have also seen into the Corki. So just going to say no to that one. Based on his reaction, I don't think that was the game plan.
Yeah. A lot of shifting in the seat, though. Maybe he actually did want to play it. I mean, there's a lot of things you can play, including Smolder, which we just saw from the other guy.
Okay. I feel like the Leona stocks really went way up. The question is, what are you going to play with it? Ashe, Braum, also a very strong duo. Jhin,
oftentimes used into the MF lanes.
Yeah, it has been quite common. I feel like we are not, at least I'm not feeling super sold on it right now.
It looks good when Hamalife play it against weaker teams.
Yeah. Well, we know that it is going to be a top pick here. Kingen playing Yone with the Lilia here would be interesting, to say the least. And he's going to do it. Unless it's Kingen playing Smolder top. Now, he was the top Smolder player. I guess that is where they're, in fact, going.
Yeah.
You know, last game we talked about, oh, they could flex it. They could pick the Lucian for mid and go top Smolder. This time I felt like it should have been even more obvious that this was a possibility because it is Kingen. And it is a matchup that it's fantastic to play into because you just zoom around and get stacks off the Cassante, just a stack battery.
Yeah, I mean, I think that matchup is pretty good. I think the Yone versus Corki matchup is doable as well. I think you've got a decent matchup in the jungle, but you don't really have a front line, and you don't have nearly as much zone control as you had in Game 1 for DK.
Yeah, on the other hand, I feel like the draft of KT is also somewhat fragile. It's a little bit rickety in terms of how it sets up fights, because you do have the Maokai, which is quite strong. Obviously, we just discussed it, but you know, following up on those Maokai engages, the Ashe arrows can be strong, the Leona can be strong, but the Jhin is just super... It's a question mark for me, to be honest, Valdez, because you're often just going to be a sitting duck into the super high-paced draft here of the side of D+, with the Yone coming through. The Smolder is going to be able to just kind of flap his way around these team fights. Hard to lock him down as well. Very risky. Now, if they can get BDD ahead early, which seems to be the MO for KT when he's on this Corki, maybe it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Well, might just come down to execution between these two teams, as it often does. Let's hop onto the Rift for game number 2.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Here we go, game number 2. Will we have a 3-gamer again? Or will D plus Kia find a way to win on the red side up against KT Rolster? The draft's looking similar in some ways, but also very different in others. The Smolder up in the top lane this time around against Cassante.
Yeah, should be pretty easy for Kingen to free stack up here and get control of the lane. As long as he doesn't make a mistake and get Q3'd, there's just not much Cassante can realistically do to get big advantages up here. With Pyoshik's help, and that could change, of course. And all eyes on Kingen's, I believe, second game of top Smolder ever. I think he only did it one time last season. As bottom lane, be a little bit more interesting to see how aiming plays this out.
Okay, it's a lane swap, but not what you're used to.
Yeah, it's a mid swap with top. We used to see this with Jace, Renekton. Those are the big ones that we would see a lot. Sometimes Sion as well.
Yeah. This is very interesting. This is like what you get in solo queue, where the guy's like, hey, I'm not good in this matchup. Can you swap with me?
This is a much better matchup for the Cassante here in mid.
Yeah, I feel like it's also better for the Yone. You know, you don't have to deal with the Gatling gun over and over and over again. You don't get harassed down. Showmaker just kind of gets to chill and farm himself. He's got a lot of mobility against the Cassante. And I would assume that should... Okay, that Valkyrie was very strange, but it allows him to get one extra auto in. This is going to be the real issue, I would say, if Kingen can survive against BDD's laning phase.
Well, it's a long lane. versus mid, so there's a lot of extra threats that you have to consider with the Smolder here on top lane. You know, we've seen Smolder win lane against Corki, and BDD has been very good at doing just that in the mid lane. And now he's playing the Corki in top lane into it, so we'll have to play this well, but I think he knows both sides of this matchup incredibly well because he's been practicing so much Smolder mid into the Corki. And we'll see if there's any jungle attention up here. As Kingen is just otherwise going to be stacking under turret, which is fine. But it just means, I think the big win here for KT is, sure, it gives a slightly better matchup for the Yone, but playing the Cassante into Smolder top was going to be pretty miserable for Perfect. So it's just to try to get him through this early game. We'll see how long this lane swap actually goes on for, because unlike bottom lane swaps, this one can actually kind of just perpetually go. Like, you don't actually have to swap back until the Yone, you know, starts to be a bit of an annoyance down here. Perhaps that's when they will end up swapping the Corki back down. But I feel like this is just BDD getting small advantages here in top lane. It's not going to be like, oh, Corki is so happy with this one. It's really just the Cassante is not miserable.
Pioshik actually able to win that smite fight. Lucid a bit early, overestimating his damage. You can see that Showmaker also able to put on the pressure here against Perfect. We've seen Cassante mid before. You know, Chovy used to play it actually a decent amount back in the day. And, you know, we don't see tanks very often in the mid lane anymore, but, you know, it's a small lane. You just kind of chill there. You don't have much kill pressure at all, is the one thing. You know, Cassante can sometimes find angles in the top lane, but in mid, unless the guy really messes up and, like, takes a turret shot and you knock him back, and, you know, you got a jungler there, maybe you can kill the Yone, but otherwise it's probably just going to be him farming there as well. As BDD trying to kill King and under the turret, does get the flap out and does actually win the trade as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's really just hard to kill a Smolder in top lane. He's very happy to sit under turret and farm. Not going to care. Both just going to TP back to top. And the one thing that we've seen like this, you mentioned it, pulling people to the wall.
Showmaker. That's, yeah, he's probably spamming that copy pasta in his brain right now. Moham gonna flash under the turret. Pioshik gets stunned under there. It's another turret shot into him, and the Ignite nearly takes him down, but Pioshik will survive. Not quite the trade KT were looking for. They're going in again, though, aiming in a bit of trouble. Flash forward from Barrel, and the fourth shot from Dev gets the first blood, and that is the trade they were looking for.
Clean flash from Barrel to avoid the re-engage there from Moham. Perfect doesn't have 6 here, so can't pull through the wall like I was alluding to. We've seen a few times when Chovy was playing this mid, sometimes into mages, he would actually set it up with his jungler and pull people through this wall just to the left of where Perfect was standing when he has ult. Doesn't have 6, obviously, in that last exchange, but still pulls Showmaker into a turret shot, so feeling really good about how that exchange went. And Showmaker's not happy with that one, but kind of played into Perfect's hands there. Now he has 6, so that should be respected a little bit more. But if Perfect is able to, for example, pull him into the wall near where Pioshik is, then Pioshik locks him down. It can be kind of disastrous. Very difficult to do unless Showmaker like rebinds his soul in a weird spot, but I've already seen him push him once. His Barrel's up here.
Yeah, Showmaker in a lot of trouble. He doesn't have flash. Remember, he used it before. Now the all-out comes out. He is going to throw his ult in, but flash forward from Perfect might be enough. He gets that last auto in. As Lucid nearby, but it's 1v3. He's got Moham here as well. It's just a clean gank from Barrel.
And KT's early games have just looked so good. Back to back, you know, last game, pretty intelligent roams, great timings from Pioshik. This time it's just all about the mid lane here in this exchange. Bottom lane, obviously great flashes. Here we go, Barrel in again. He's just not stopping.
Yeah, the peel here, though, on a Barrel is quite good. They don't have the damage, though, and they get baited into this one. As Barrel, the mind games, he picks up another kill for the team. As now Showmaker is here. A lot of low health bars. BDD in a lot of trouble, has to flash over the wall. And he's almost definitely going down, unless Ingen goes down first. But no, 1Q will get the job done. And the Grubs are actually denied from here.
Pioshik is very far away from any help, so I think we'll have to give this scuttle up at best case scenario. We'll probably be giving up more. The rest of the team will join, of course, shortly, but going back to this play, Showmaker uses his Q3. That's the moment Barrel's waiting for. He's already channeling his Hex Flash. Showmaker is just like, really? Really? And then he ends up getting caught there by the Zenith Blade, and Perfect has his ultimate, so That's pretty clean. And then this time, Barrel's really feeling himself, okay? But this was a bit of a bridge too far. Does hit level 5, but BDD going in here, they don't have enough damage just yet. It's a kill of Lucid, but like Showmaker's back, and it's hard to make sense of some of the decisions we're seeing in this series, to be honest with you, Valdez. But it's D plus KT, it's Saturday Showdown, and they're showing up and showing down.
Yeah, we're showing a fight in the bottom lane, but that is Rel. Barrel, he sees enemy, and he goes in. And no excuses. Perfect, gonna get this knockback here. Maybe thinking about an angle, doesn't have us all out just yet. But he's beginning to win this matchup. You know, forcing the flash early. Yone not quite online just yet. Like Asante with a lot of armor stacked up is going to win at this point in time.
Showmaker, he's sitting on Berserker's Greaves at this point. Isn't really going to be winning these fights without help. And Lucid has fortunately not really been able to relieve the pressure mid or in top lane, where we did see Kingin kind of get bullied by BDD. It's been a kind of quiet game for the Lilia. Now has level 6. Perfect is very tanky. So Showmaker just going to be farming it up here. We're going to have kind of this slow mid game you have to expect after a lot of action bottom side. Speaking of,
Deft just kind of walking up by himself in a 1v2. Just has to flash and cleanse. Here's the bullet time, and Deft barely going to get out. Just not much damage early on. Rank 1 on that ult, but why did he have to flash and cleanse in the first place is the real question we should be asking.
Yeah, he walked right into Moham's range there, and he is Jhin, who doesn't do very quick walking at this point in time, and is not able to get away without flash and cleanse. And so now he has no summoners. That exchange could have been enough to start up this dragon here for D+, but they do want to regroup first. They don't have Aiming's ultimate, so the lull state continues, but still a big mistake from Deft means he's going to have to take a trip home. Does have, had Swifties, actually opts for plated steel caps instead. Quite rare to see that, but against this AD composition, it is going to be pretty high value.
Yeah, you see it every once in a while nowadays, especially I think we saw, might have been yesterday, somebody was playing Jhin and they had Mountain Soul with 2 Mountain Drakes and they had plated steel caps and they had 111 armor or something ridiculous. It was like, wow, why is that a thing? Like, why is the Jhin so tanky?
It might have been Leaper, I can't remember.
Maybe it was like Viper a couple of days ago against BNK, I'm not 100% sure, but there was a lot of armor, regardless. Kingin still suffering a bit, not handling this lane quite as well as BDD did earlier on.
Joshik's coming over here, does have ult. D+ are just going to vacate the area, because this Smolder, I mean, he has ult. It's not great at early skirmishes if you don't have the setup for his ultimate. You know, I was talking about a little bit how great BDD's Smolder early games have been and how he's used his ultimate in these skirmishes incredibly well. Like BDD's early skirmishes on Corki too, like he's so well prepped for this. Looks like Kingin just not so much, and even with the Lilia here, they're just gonna let this one go. The prio at least. Deft over here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a setup for the Drake. It's the first Drake of the game. Currently 4v3, but with the TP coming in from Kingin. It's actually KT Rolster that are going to give this one up. So enough pressure and no sums on Deft potentially. They just say, well, we don't get the pick we were looking for. We're just going to back away. It's not going to be Chemtech Soul this time. So that is the next Drake.
Could be Infernal again. It should be pretty interesting. 2 Smolder Infernal games back to back. The Smolder did not secure the Infernal Soul, that is to say, though. In the previous game, as Barrel is on a ward. And will he let his inner thoughts get the better of him?
Probably, yeah.
Sees the ward expire, so knows that he's been underwatched this entire time.
Now's your chance.
To kill that cannon minion and get one more World Atlas stack. Hell yeah.
He did do that. Kingin threw an ult in, didn't hit BDD, but he clears the wave. As TP will be utilized by BDD to get back into mid.
You can see the difference between Kingin's Smolder and BDD's Smolder. Obviously, he's a top laner. He's playing it. Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is a very awkward spot for him. He does have the flap, but he has to flash to get in range to actually use it.
Yeah, we'll be losing a little bit of farm here in the top lane, as well as these grubs. But I was just going to say, as Keegan kind of gave me a +1 on the point, was BDD's really been preparing this pick, right? Knows the Corki matchup incredibly well because it's the most common matchup, but it's what he's been picking it into. Whereas Keegan picked this for top lane, got lane swapped into, probably isn't preparing as much for the Corki matchups, getting kind of crushed there. And I don't want to say it looks lost, but hasn't really been joining team fights the same. Hasn't been making the same impact that BDD did in the early game on his Smolder. Does feel like you could feel the gap. Different roles, different situation. And he did pick up that kill earlier on during the overextension, but the game hasn't really been as much about his proactive plays. And he's just kind of on the back foot here against this Corki.
Yeah, I mean, he's still stacking up, still going to be a Smolder. This is kind of like the way Kingen is playing a lot of games recently. You know, he's playing a lot of Smolder before he got globally banned, or not Smolder, Aurora.
Yeah.
And was falling behind, but still being having a big impact on the games. And then he's been playing a lot of GP.
He's a scaling
lane,
top
and then
laner.
scaling. Yeah, now he's playing Smolder. Kind of.
I mean, he's not really like losing per se.
But he
He
got
has
a
like
kill.
yeah, he's only a little bit behind in
Scaling.
CS. It's just I'm just saying, really, it's the difference in the impact he's made as a top Smolder versus what BDD has done. And last time he played Smolder, he went for kind of a tank build. This was a really long time ago, and Smolder's been changed a little bit, nerfed a little bit. But he kind of went like full tank. I want to say he went like Shojin's into a tank build. This time he's just going for the standard Triforce Muramana. That's been a lot more common. So going to be less tanky. As he wants to be a late game carry, not just a tank that also has scaling properties.
Moham just kind of walks past him. Kingen nearly dies. And Barrel's just going to lock down Moham, but BD very far down the lane. Might not be punished here, but here comes Lucid and aiming, both running this way. Maybe trying to punish Barrel here, as so many members of DK are in the area. Just going to throw a bullet time into the Leona, as now everybody's getting locked down. In goes Pyosik, but he is alone, and Moham's going to survive. Showmaker very far forward, might be punished, but Pyosik's going to go down. And pulled through the wall is Showmaker. He will flash to get away, and that means DK just pick up 2 kills just like that.
Okay, messy fight. KT's super disjointed. They almost kill Kingen, but don't quite. They almost have the Maokai engaged to turn things around, but he's a little bit too far away. They almost snipe Moham, but he's going to be blocked there. So that's going to be the Herald going over as well as the kills. D+ actually taking a gold lead off of the final exchange. They give the Herald over to aiming because he's the gold king, so that's just how that goes. But yeah, looking at how this fight shakes out, it's just a faster rotation from Lucid. He's outpacing Pyosik. Deft isn't able to offer anything in this fight. In fact, aiming offers a lot. He has a bullet time. He's an MF doing a ton of auto attack damage. And yes, the re-engage comes through here with the ultimate of Pyosik, but it's just a little bit too late. And Deft he's just tricking people. He's walking around reloading while Showmaker gets pulled to the wall. Great flash.
All the bullets are flying all over the floor. He like stumbles over them. It's really awkward.
I just feel like the impact that aiming had in that fight versus the impact Deft had in that fight cannot really be compared. And the numbers advantage from D+ just having the faster rotation of Lucid was a bit of an issue.
Yeah, take a look at this turret plating graphic. We don't often get one that has 1 plate on it, but I feel like it fits this matchup because these two teams, not necessarily the most macro-focused teams in the LCK, if I'm being nice. You know, sometimes they get a lot of plates on aiming and stuff. It's really matchup dependent, but this game hasn't really looked that way so far, let's say. As now DK, they would love to get 2 Drakes, stack it up, maybe hope to roll an Infernal once again. See if they can do that, or if KT will challenge them.
Yeah, if it's a Mountain Soul, that's going to be really good for KT with this Cassante pick.
And the tank Jhin.
Yeah, as well as the Locket building Pyosik. Did not go Leandri's first.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Leandri's second. I feel like at least 1 tank item is necessary in this meta. Like you were talking about in the first game, like the Leandri's with the poke, with the saplings, it still matters. This Kingen in a bit of trouble. Down comes Mom just to keep him alive, but that lane has, a big engage. This time from Moham on the rail, catches 2, and that is just free. KT cannot get in onto the Drake.
Should be 2 Dragons to D+, off of the play, 2 kills. Kingen lives topside, he's still scaling. And KT losing control of this game fast again, having a nice, very early game. It is Mountain, so maybe they could start stacking those up for perfect here. And the Jhin and the Leona and the tank Maokai. But obviously the K'Sante going to be the biggest benefactor in this game of the Mountain Soul if he can get dragons. As Moam is he's like just right there. Like, it's not a surprise. It's not a banana brush problem. It's not because of that control ward and the entry brush.
Do you feel like KT are not respecting Moham enough?
I feel like that. I also feel like they're not playing the best game today. I also feel like they're trying to have fun.
That's like the second time they've just run straight at a rel and gotten punished.
As a stacked up tight ball of players and about the radius of a magnet storm.
Yeah. And a bullet time.
Yeah.
That perfectly overlaps with it.
Sure, and I mean, you want to contest the dragon because it's going to be potentially a high-value soul, especially when Chemtech is already on the board.
Aiming, the Gold King just picked up his second item of LDR.
Yes.
18 minutes into the game.
He knew it was going to be Mountain Soul as well. He's like, just getting it ready. Showmaker.
Yeah. Leone hasn't had a lot of flashy moments in this game. Thankfully, they haven't needed it.
No, he doesn't.
Kind of hanging out.
He doesn't need a combo with the Rel. Now he's got a bullet time for that. Kingen maybe being put down in lane, but he's still scaling. He's not going to get that much out of the Mountain Soul. He's got plated steel caps, but he's getting stronger later. He keeps almost dying, but then not dying. And for KT, I think that's part of why they kind of rushed into that dragon fight. They're like, man, we need to do something before this smolders online. And Jhin has Static Shiv, which is not my favorite item that he builds. So,
well, he's going to be clearing the waves and then reloading and not doing a lot of shooting compared to the MF in this one.
You know, KT either look like they could be the best team in the LCK, or they look very sloppy and uncoordinated and unprepared. And this is one of those secondary options in this game. It's still only 1,400 the gold lead here, but
Showmaker, his opportunity, and he will get a bunch of poke damage.
Barrel?
Does get Barrel, and Barrel just going to assassinate Showmaker, who is not very tanky at this point in time. Nice lineup here from DK, as now the sleep is going to come in, and a massive bullet time once again forces the flashes away. So many low health bars on the side of KT, but they're still going forward. Lucid, and he goes for the arm guard, but he's probably, no, he's going to get away, and he flashes out of that one, aiming, takes down the Leona, who just goes a bit too far.
I mean, Barrow played the first two engages very well, but then maybe going a little bit too far on the last one there. But, you know, it looked pretty good for D+ until it didn't, as the arm guard felt like it was a massive waste. I kind of cringed internally when it first happened, but he actually played it off super well, was able to get the flash out to survive as it expired. So Lucid ends up living, Aiming ends up picking up a 4th kill on this Misfortune. I mean, the BT spike when you're ahead is already in itself so massive, but even having this LDR against the K'Sante second feels so fantastic, and was able to get his magical footwear early too because he's got all these kills. Showmaker wants to make a play here on the BDD, doesn't hit the initial engage. If he does, maybe that's actually enough. He's actually in trouble, right? He gets engaged on Barrel with a really good punish. That's the first part of this that's really good. Then Moham gets caught, and Barrel is like, all right, we're ready to go back in here. After the bullet time, he is able to avoid most of that damage with the Eclipse, goes on to Lucid. BDD has a ton of damage, but then look at this. Perfectly timed to avoid the rocket, and then flashes away, so well timed. His Draft is trying to set up a trap there, just couldn't get it up underneath where his actual physical location was.
It's rough, you know, to set the trap in a really good spot when you're juggling all the bullets at the same time. It's a lot of stuff that you have going on. The first Mountain Drake is going to be spawning here in about 45 seconds, and as of right now, DK are in a better spot to go for that one. KT actually angling up towards the top side, but they have a nice timing here where they can take the turret down back and then try to contest on this Drake, which it looks like they might just do here.
30 seconds. Perfect setting up around it. They do have Leona and Corki heading over as well.
Kingen not 225,
yeah,
just at 200.
200 here. He's going to need a few more waves to actually complete this, so shouldn't have it for this fight unless Perfect ends up standing in his abilities. As It's going to be a few more, but has to wait a long time for those minions, so going to back instead. KT don't have prio. Mom's in the banana brush. I mean, they cannot get multi-man Magnet Stormed again. Right, Valdez?
Romana picked up, by the way. You talked about the back here from Kingen, so that's a big spike for him.
And they're just delaying him. He might actually get these stacks. If he gets another wave of spells off onto KT.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it before, the Mountain Drake's so valuable for KT, so I feel like DK still don't want to just give one away, but if they could get their Smolder to 225, that would be huge. As in goes perfect, not going to get a knock-up, as everybody kind of posturing on the Drake. DK not overcommitting just yet. Moham actually going to crash down away, and now the Maokai ultimate comes in. They're just going to back out of this one, but KT, they want more. They want to engage as the sleep is coming down, but Lucid is getting so low. As in goes Showmaker. He finally hits something. A massive bullet time lines them all up. They run straight into aiming, and Lucid is still alive in this match.
There's the stacks.
And Def 12 is just gonna go down. Nice try, as he was on the long-term chase, and Lucid gets away again.
KT, why are we chasing into choke points? Why are we chasing into choke points with bullet time? Magnet Storm, why are we doing it? Look at the setup here. Right, if you paused it like right here, you're like, all right, look at this. They're zoned out. Look at Def. Gonna set up his last curtain call.
Yeah.
And then Maokai ultimate, you got the dragon. Great.
This is fine.
But don't go into the choke point against Bomb, against Magnet Storm, against Bullet Time. Do not do
Against
it.
Sealed Fate, you know?
Like, it's just actually baffling, KT. There's no reason.
Yeah.
But Barrel was like, okay, wait, hold on. They're zoned, but they're still close. I'm going to go in. And that's the kind of pro gamer mindset you have, because you don't think of like, I want a dragon. You're like, oh, they messed up. I'm going to get more.
Yeah.
But I think thinking about the bigger picture, instead of like, oh, I've got a pick angle here, might have been just, all right, cool, we got this dragon. We need to back away. They're feeling the pressure of the Smolder stacking up. They wanted to win that fight before Kingan's 225. They failed to do so.
And Wolf, you're exactly right. And the issue is, it's not even the Smolder that's the big issue. It's the MF. Look at Aiming's items.
Yeah.
He has the max bounty possible.
Yeah.
He is the Gold King. He has 3.5 items at 24 minutes into the game.
They gave him the kill on Def, too. There were multiple players that could have taken that, and they're just like, nah, you get him. You can have that money.
He needs more. He's the Gold King.
He is.
That's what he does.
He has a BF sword as well on top of that.
He's a magnet, yeah.
Well, I think actually Moham is the magnet, but...
That's true. There's, I mean, you know, MF's got a couple of guns. I'm sure those are made out of metal.
It does feel like Aiming has the magnet shield from Sonic, and the rings just come to him.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the idea that I had in my mind. I mean, he just absorbs gold. And KT have not been able to punish that at all. You know, you think about the MF, here comes another bullet time. Barrel, or rather, Pyosik is just dead. Yeah, I mean, there's not much they can do. I mean, DK are just so strong, and the MF is just untouchable right now. We talk about the Leona so good into the MF, but we have not seen the MF shut down at all in this game.
They're going to start Baron here. Barrel trying to look for Moham's flank.
Oh, Jin's going to open up here. They want to get Lucid, but he's got Zonya's completed, and now the Smolder's online. The MF's in a perfect spot. Showmaker will go down, but the damage is not coming from Showmaker. It's a triple kill for Aiming, who now has 9 kills in this game, and they will take down the Baron here at 26 minutes.
You know, it's been very rare. In fact, we haven't seen it this season, but it's been rare in general between these two teams across the last few years. But it is looking more and more likely that we are going to have a 2-0 here. D+ looking to be by far the stronger team here outside of these early games, and the mid-game came a lot faster this time around. Just look at this. I mean, Pyoshik's just out of position. They just hard commit. They're like, cool, we go Baron. And even without those critical tools for the engage, they have this really fantastic turn, and Aiming does so much damage in these fights just with his auto attacks and double ups. He just cleans up house, and no one can close the gap. Plus the burns coming through from Kingen. And this draft, again, as mentioned, it felt kind of rickety. When it's this far behind, you don't have a jungle, you don't have a Maokai. How could you ever approach D+'s composition? IE.
Yeah.
IE at 26 minutes, he is on 4 items.
Hey, and he completed his boots, too. He was sitting on the brown bags for quite a while. Finally got that done after his 4th item. So that's when he decides the tier 2 boots are worth it.
Show the gold. Show the gold. Aiming's even with King in the soul lane in terms of levels.
Yeah.
Show me that gold. I want to see it.
it's very comfortable to play on a team with aiming where he absorbs all the pressure, all the gold on the map, and you just get to kind of side lane and do nothing.
Item
And farm
value,
up. Yeah.
14,000 to 7.8K.
That's almost double 27 minutes into the game.
Like, no one is even close to him.
You rarely ever see that, if at all. Like, double the value of items at 27 minutes into the game? That's
Like, that's
insane.
that doesn't happen in solo queue games where, like, somebody goes 0-4.
Well,
I mean, it can, but it doesn't always
my
happen.
AFK Timo begs to differ. Yeah, so DK, I mean, at this point, we've gone on and on about the MF. He is insanely fed, and I feel like this is now just their victory lap.
And, yeah, I mean, the Baron just might end the game. They have this inhibitor. They could get a pick. They certainly could just end. Moam's got his ult back. So does aiming. And they otherwise could just siege with this Smolder.
Yeah. They've got pretty good siege, you know, with the Lilia, the Smolder, even the MF herself. But with the wave cleared and the Baron buff not too much longer, but Pioshik's just going to go in, nearly dies. Mom might take him down, not quite. As now trying to go in onto King, and again, he's not really the target. And there's no follow-up on the engage either. The Solar Flare now used, which means that aiming can pretty much safely just throw in a bullet time whenever he wants.
You can't get on top of Moam either because he will just turn that on to you instantly if you try to collapse on him. So he's actually very safe in the base. Doesn't care. It's a second inhibitor, and the siege continues. Baron's still up for 15 seconds.
Yep, just poking him down, doing more and more damage. The R2 gonna go down. Moham gonna take a turret shot as KT, one last try. They were thinking about it, but DK showing a lot of patience, you know, especially with this Mountain Drake up. They do not want to overextend, and so they will back away from the base.
Kingan's gonna sneeze one time before going out. We'll,
Bless you, Kingan.
no vision here.
Yeah, they're trying to push in, they're trying to stop them from backing, but way too much pressure in the two lanes as well.
And this is just going to be aiming, basically soloing the dragon. Luce will come over for the smite, but the majority of the damage done to it will be aiming, even with Leandri's here for Lucid.
So we'll,
he's just going to back off.
If you're aiming, what item do you buy fifth?
I don't know. Like, he could go GA, but is he really worried about being hurt?
I was thinking, like, just go Zhonya's. So far ahead. Oh, it looks like he's not going Zhonya's. Probably going RFC, I guess.
Yeah. Well, he goes Phantom Dancer.
Yeah, I mean, that makes more sense, especially for an AD carry player, but I feel like myself, maybe I would have just gone Zhonya's.
Let's get the arm guard.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea. But GA also is another good call.
Sure. I mean, that's what the expectation would be, but does he need it? I mean, it's got good stats. At this point, he could just, like, close his eyes and open attack damage. Like, open the market section and just pick whatever you want.
Zeal looks cool. Yeah, let's pick that up. Yeah. Well, DK, they've only got one lane to go, and it is this top lane. They took down the Mountain Drake. They don't have the soul just yet, obviously, but they're looking to siege here even without the Baron, which does spawn in about a minute. So just looking to keep the pressure up. The other two pushing lanes should keep KT in kind of a vice grip in their base.
Yeah, Showmaker's in mid here on the cross as well.
KT, they gotta send it. They don't have anywhere else to go. They're gonna go in onto the front line as in goes Moham, catches everybody. The bullet time is just insane damage. Everybody is slept as well, as it's really the victory lap this time for the side of DK. A triple kill for Lucid. And man, that was a clean one from the side of DK, and it's a clean 2-0 from D plus Kia to take down KT. And they will secure their spot here with a very strong series win moving into playoffs.
The bottom duo, the kings of this second game, 100% KP for Moham, aiming just one behind. The two of them ruled the game. The engages were fantastic. The damage, the bullet times were also just so valuable. Kingan playing Smolder and getting lane swapped into. Didn't look great initially. Didn't really matter. He didn't die. He almost died many times, but those almosts actually ended up being weaponized against KT, who overextended into some skirmishes topside, some choke points. And D+ were just the stronger team today. And considering there's still a chance that these teams will meet up in playoffs depending on how that first round goes, You know, this is definitely a boon for D+, who finished strong at the end of the season where it matters most. Our third place team here in the LCK, likely to once again represent Korea at the World Championship for 2024. This is a good look. Again, not perfect by any means, but that's what happens when these two teams collide. A little Gangnam style into, I don't know what it is.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you combined like 3 different dances. The beginning was definitely Gangnam style. Oh, it's all Gangnam style. Okay, thank
That's
you.
not, Ji-sun said it, but that's not right. That's not how the ending goes. Anyway, yeah, we got a lot of fans here for D+ Kia, and it's been so long since we've seen this team dominate. They are one of the dark horses to potentially make finals. You know, depending on how that playoff run looks and what the bracket looks like, they absolutely could do it because T1 right now looking very rocky.
Yeah.
Hanwha Life Esports not looking infallible. There is still a lot up in the air. I think most people expect that Gen G will go directly to finals through that bracket, but and this team has played Gen G close so many times in playoffs.
Yeah. Shout out to Moham. Seems like he's getting better and better. You know, we had kind of that curve with Duro and with Guger. Had a little bit of a curve down, you know, Vital's playing nowadays. But it does feel like Moham, you know, came into his own in this game. I do think that KT kind of gave him some, but definitely much cleaner than we have seen, I would say, in the series. And that's a good look. You know, you talk about playoffs, they need Moham to be ready to go for some of those big pressure matches.
Yeah, I think that when I look at how Moham has played these last few weeks, where he's been pulled in basically last minute here as a you are going to be our playoffs support. He's made the most of it. I feel like he's made some big improvements. There have been some mistakes for sure, but you know, it's moments like this, his decisiveness, punishing KT. Yeah, you could say that KT made some big mistakes in this game. You know, overextending into a lot of choke points, etc. This is one of those moments. But being able to recognize those moments and punish them instantly and turn them into big boons for your squad is something that, you know, you kind of learn those fundamentals in challengers, but the coordination isn't as good. And being able to crush a team like KT here, who is a top 5 team in the LCK, and you know, when you look at where they could have been, just a few things go differently, they could have been top 4. It's very impressive, especially when you consider how he looks now versus when he was on Kwangdong. It's kind of night and day. He's just really continued to develop in challengers, has been thrown into the fire of the LCK, and he's doing a good job.
He definitely is. And we're just going to listen in to the last moments of this fight. And you know, just back up, and now they say go forward when Moham's going in.
Look at Showmaker as well. He was on the cross the whole time. There was really no way for KT to back out. This base is saying good job. Showmaker's not too happy with his performance. I think that's been kind of like when they give all the gold to aiming and Showmaker just kind of has a muted game.
Oh.
Yeah, he always looks like
he
looks so disappointed in himself. But I think it's really a sign of Showmaker was always the main character for this roster, right? He's the franchise player, he's signed for multiple years. And now they're like, no, this is a new identity. We've got some rookies coming through. We've got aiming. He's kind of our new main character guy. And Showmaker's more of a facilitator. That's real growth.
That is. I mean, like we said at the start, they have a lot of different avenues to go through and actually carry through. Speaking of which, guys, we do have a lot of players to interview. DK and KT will have their entire teams interviewed. Everybody will get a chance to speak and answer some questions, so make sure you are tuning into that. But up next, we are going to have actually the space first, so let's throw it over to them right now.
Thank you very much, guys. This is Ji-sun for the post-match interview translation. And today, as we had the final match of the both teams, we're going to be joined by the entire player lineups from D+ Kia and KT. But let's start off with D+ Kia first. We'll be joined by Kingen, Lucy Showmaker, Aiming, Moham, and Kellen for the interview. Congratulations on the win today. That was a fantastic series to close out the regular season for D+ Kia, and we can see happy parents from Kingen, right? Yeah, they are my parents. Fantastic to see your parents supporting here at the venue as well. And the signature pose as well. Thanks to them, I think I got the parents buff and got a clean 2-0. I love you, Mom and Dad. A very wholesome moment and some hearts and the muscle flex from King An's parents to show support. Amazing. And we had an absolutely fantastic series today as well, given that both teams are known for always delivering epic matches. It was expected to be another intense one today. What were your thoughts as you came to the arena? Because this is going to be the final match of the regular season, we wanted to kind of get rid of all the burdens on our shoulder and try out everything we wanted to try. Also, I'm so glad that we were able to kind of deliver a very happy and exciting match for the DK fans for the very last match of the regular season. And in Game 2, King and Yu played Smolder top and faced up against BDD in a lane swap. How was that experience? I was a little bit flustered because it's a common mid lane matchup, and I was pretty sure BDD will be very well experienced in that matchup. But ever since the first laning phase, I was able to kind of do a decent job, so it was pretty good. You had a lot of strong performance this summer, sometimes even showing a machine-like precision. So what stands out as the most memorable moment for you? I cannot really choose one specific game or a moment, but today we were able to get a 2-0 win, whereas we were always going to the distance in the majority of the regular season, so I'm so happy that we pulled it off. Once again, please give it up for Kingin. And now moving on to Lucid. This year, every match up against KT Roaster this year has gone to a full set, but today you guys secured a clean 2-0. Were you expecting this? I mean, every time we play, I had this confidence that we can get a clean 2-0, but we could not. So it was very exhausting, very hard, but I really wanted to get a fast, quick 2-0 today, and I think my resolution kind of showed off. And Lucid, this is your debut year, and this is your second season in the LCK. How do you feel you have grown personally? I was, lost in the very early this year, but I got so much help from the teammates and coaching staff, so I was able to get so many takeaways and grow as a player. Then what are your thoughts and resolution for the playoffs? This playoff is very deeply connected with our chances of making it into Worlds as well, so I want to make sure to do my best in order to get the best outcome possible. Now, Showmaker. Today was the final match before the playoffs, which could be the final track of your own performance as well. It could be a day to assess your form in competition. What aspects did you focus on? We were already locked third place, and yeah, this is the final kind of showcase of our performance before the playoffs. So I wanted to kind of display the best performance, but also kind of throw our shots to try new stuff. And you led the team to a victory with a flawless, quirky performance without dying a single time, and got a POG as well. How do you feel about that game? Well, game number 1 was pretty, intense. It was a neck and neck game, but in the end, we managed to get a win, so it meant a lot to us. And 1,000 POG points definitely makes me feel happy. Now, D plus Kia secured third place in the regular season, giving you the right to choose your opponent in the first round of the playoffs. What will you consider the most when making your choice? I think it's a big advantage that you get to choose your own opponent in the first round of playoffs, so we will make sure to analyze all the potential opponents and make the decision. Moving on to Aiming. Aiming, the Gold King. The Gold King itself. You set the record for the most Gold King title this season, had an outstanding performance. You also had 301 kills this single regular season as well. That also sets a new record. So how would you like to look back at your regular season? Heading towards the end of the season, I got to just pick up so many kills thanks thanks to my teammates. So I want to say thank you to all of them, and I had a lot of fun this season. Aiming, your stats in the second round were just absolutely fantastic. It was dazzling. Your laning phase stats are amazing. Your team fight stats are also amazing. How do you feel about this record? I can confidently say that I can be one of the best AD carries right now in the league. I am the one that can bring the team to the victory. Then anything you want to say to your PO AD carry opponents? The DK, the strong bottom lane is coming at you. Get ready. Now let's hear from Moham. Your last match of the regular season was the Saturday Showdown up against KT Roaster. You not only won, but also earned your first POG. How do you feel? I was expecting Showmaker. I wish he could have won the POG in the last game so he can tie the POG standings first place. You know, I really hope for Showmaker also winning the player of the split though. Still happy to win the first POG of the season in the LCK summer. Showmaker, anything you want to add on to that? He did a fantastic job that game. So you joined the starting lineup of DK at the end of the summer season. How was your performance with Aiming on the bottom lane? Aiming, he's a great AD carry. Then anything you want to say about your playoffs resolution? Don't cry. I was actually feeling very pressured. I mean, I can tell Zepa was under so much pressure, kind of feeling myself, you know, on the starting lineup. But I want to live up to his expectation, and I will do my best. Thank you, everyone. And Kellen, the long summer season has come to an end finally. How do you look back at it? I mean, we had so much fun together, and I think our performance has become so much better as well. Well, today's opponent, KT, has always been a tough opponent. So what were your thoughts as you were watching and supporting your team? I mean, nothing special, but it was a very intense series for sure. But I was just, you know, supporting and watching the match behind. Anything you want to say to the fans as well? I don't know how everything will unfold, but, you know, I wish I can also play a match in front of my fans. Thank you so much. And before we go, Showmaker asked the captain of the Kia, anything you want to say to all the DK fans out there? So we are just about to hit playoffs, a very important one, and I wish we can perform at the road show to close out the summer season. Once again, congratulations to D plus Kia on today's win, and please give a round of applause before they leave the stage. We will be joined by Perfect, Pyosik, BDD, Deft, and Barrel for the entire team interview. Please welcome them with a warm round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us. Starting off with the top laner, Perfect. This was your last match of the regular season. How do you feel about your experience in the summer split? I wanted to perform better than the spring season, but I think I left more regrets than the spring. But still, everyone gave their best until the very end. What are your resolutions for the playoffs? I don't see myself or my performance solid enough, so I hope to come back stronger for the playoffs. Now let's hear from Pyosik. You worked so hard until the very last match. How do you feel about the summer regular season? I think a lot of things happened throughout the season. but still, together we were able to have so much fun. I want to say thank you to my teammates who worked so hard together. And now we are about to head into the playoffs, so we will make sure to do our best there as well. Then anything you would like to say to your teammates, encouraging them to do even better in the playoffs? Let's do our best, maybe even better at the playoffs. Fighting!
이어서 BDD 선수 만나보도록 하겠습니다. BDD 선수 이번 정규 시즌 정말
Now
다양한
BDD,
챔피언들을 이용하시면서
you
멋진
showed
모습
incredible
보여주셨는데요.
performances with
서머 정규 시즌
variety of
마치신 소감
champions.
들어보겠습니다.
How do you feel about completing the summer regular season? This year, there were a lot of risky moments. We were almost on the verge of not making it into the playoffs, but I'm very relieved that we ended up making it to the playoffs. And the playoffs is still ahead, so what mindset will you have as you prepare for it? Not like today, you know, because we hit the bottom. Now it's about to rise again. This is KT Roaster, so we will make sure to do our best to, you know, prepare the best form for the playoffs.
이어서 데프트 선수 만나서 이야기
Now let's
나눠보도록
hear from
하겠습니다.
Deft.
데프트 선수 이번 서머 정말
This
전승적인
summer,
전지를 잡아내기도 하고요. 좋은
KT
모습이
Roaster had so
많았습니다.
many
좀
highlights,
기억나는
including
장면이
ending
있을까요?
the Genji's undefeated streak. What stands out the most to you? Probably every single match for me, you know. Regardless of who our opponent was, we have the potential to beat. So every moment that we were able to pop off stands out to me. Then what kind of form or performance do you want to showcase in the playoffs? I mean, not like today, you know, if you are in a state where you cannot lose a game, you should be able to close out the game. And I want to make sure that we give our best at the playoffs.
마지막으로 베릴 선수 만나보겠습니다.
And lastly,
베릴 선수 정규 시즌
Beryl.
마지막 경기 마치신 소감 부탁드립니다.
How do you feel about finishing the last match of the regular season?
초에 연패했던 기억이 엊그제 같은데
I mean, like,
빠르게
we were on a losing streak. It feels like yesterday, but time flies and we're already finishing the regular season.
기분은 좋습니다.
But still, it feels, you know, nice to be able to play at the playoffs as well. Before we go, anything you would like to say to the fans as well? So we still have playoffs and also the Worlds qualifier to play as well. It's a bit of a bummer that we were not able to play at our best level today, but we will do our best in order to come back stronger and with a better form at the playoffs and also the regional qualifiers. And last but not least, Deft, as the team's captain, can you share your thoughts and resolution for the future with the fans? Throughout the summer season, the energy coming from the fans was amazing. It meant the world for us. So when we win, we were so happy for them. When we lost, we were so sorry for them. So I want to promise that we will come back stronger at the playoffs. And this will mark the end of the team interview from KT Roaster and back to the space. Thank you.